to Let's Talk More on Monday. I'm your podcast host, Chloe, and I am joined by two wonderful women from Bosma today. We are very excited to continue our series on disabilities, inclusion, and equity for the month of July. So welcome to both of you. We're very happy to have you on our podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for having me, Chloe.
So I would like for you both to introduce yourselves, talk about who you are and what you do. So let's start with you, Sherine.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Sherine. I work at Bosma as a contracts and compliance manager. So it's kind of like a paralegal. I follow a lot of policies, make sure everyone's up to date, do a lot of life cycle contract management, just to keep things flowing and make sure we're on top of everything. So I've been doing this for about 3.5 years.
Wow, love it.
Great. I'm Lisa Pace, and I'm the Executive Vice President here at Bosma Enterprises. So I work with our programs team. So we provide statewide rehabilitative programs and work with that great team. I also work with our revenue generating team, which is business development and sales, and then marketing, PR, and communication, public policy, and our customer service teams also I work with them.
Awesome. Well, we're very, very glad to have you both here today. And I want to start by just having you already mentioned a little bit of it, but Lisa, if you wouldn't mind breaking down like what Bosma is, what you do, how you ended up here today.
Bosma Enterprises is a social enterprise. So we perform government contracts. We also work in the commercial space, and the work that we do is performed in part by people who are blind or visually impaired. So we are creating employment by the work that we do. We currently hold the National Glove contract for the Department of Veterans Affairs. And so we provide all of the examination and surgical gloves and other products to the VA so that they can take care of our nation's heroes, our veterans. And that creates employment for people who are blind or visually impaired. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're doing great work.
And we also have as I said, we have those rehabilitative programs. Yeah. So we also provide statewide programs. We served 1,000 people last year. So in Indiana, if you lost your vision tomorrow, you would want to come to Bosma on Saturday and learn how to live your life over again without vision.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, that's really amazing. What I would like to hear from both of you on what your background is, like your past involvement on working with folks with disabilities, how you got into this field, if you have a certain passion for it.
So in my background, I started working at Bosma right out of college. So I do not have any experience working with people with disabilities. But when I was applying and I was like, I've never heard of them. Let me do a little research, and all of the reviews have been amazing. People would mention other people's names who have worked there, who they've worked with, that are so great. And I was like, I'm very interested in seeing more of what they do here at Bosma. So on my interview day, we took a tour, and I was like, wow, you just never think of how people who are blind or visually impaired get around life. Because I feel like the norm is, okay, we're now at home, someone's taking care of us. But so many people are so independent. It amazes me. They've taught me so much, and as well as me teaching them, but definitely they're always teaching me new things. I'm always learning something new, or what I'd never thought would happen or what was possible. So it's very eye-opening. It's also very humbling just to see, sometimes we take things for granted, but there's always a sunny side to any challenges that you may face.
Yeah. And my company follows a very similar philosophy that these people are so valuable. It's important to keep them in the community as much as possible and to foster their like independence skills, because obviously they still are able to do so many things. It's just that they have lost one thing that maybe they were used to, or maybe they were born without it, but they're still so capable, and allowing them to have access, have resources to still live their lives to the fullest is really amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Lisa?
I come at it from a little bit different perspective. My first career was in banking and when I was in my early 20s, I was a new mom, a wife, and had a emerging career, and started to have a little bit of trouble when I would drive to work. It would seem as though things would sort of come out of nowhere into my field of vision. So I went to the local eye care professional and thought that I was going to get glasses and everything would be fine. I left that appointment learning that I had a degenerative retinal disease, and over my lifetime I would go blind.
Wow.
And so at a point in my life where people are looking forward to what's coming next and how their career will evolve, and being at their child's wedding and seeing them get married and have children, my future was one that I was looking forward to having the world go dark. And it was extremely terrifying. And the good news is that the disease that I had is degenerative, and so I would lose my vision over time. So it did give me some time to adjust. But over time, I did lose the majority of my vision. And with that, I left my first career in banking and finance, and I went on Social Security disability, not believing that I could work. The challenge with that was I was always really wired to work. It was a lot of my identity, and without that, I really lost myself and became very withdrawn. Fortunately, I did a Google search and a company called Bosma Enterprises came up, and it was close to my home, so transportation was not an issue. I no longer drove, and I went to the facility, and I was introduced to people who were blind, but they were just living their lives and they were successful. And it was, their visual impairment was just like another characteristic of them, much like my eyes are brown. They are blind, and it didn't define them. And I came into the facility with no hope. And I felt when I left that the options were limitless. And that's what organizations like Bosma do. So that's been my experience here. And in my role now as executive vice president, I'm able to share stories like mine that I hope inspire other people to know that vision loss, it certainly does come with its sets of challenges. And as I'm always happy to share, sometimes I didn't handle that very well, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a light after you lose your vision.
Yeah, and you're giving that gift back to people that you probably wish that you had somebody like yourself when you were going through that now to guide you. So that's very special.
Well, it's a really low incidence disability, so you don't find a lot of people who are blind, but
not a lot of support groups.
Certainly, Bosma, there are so many people here that serve as mentors to other people that are losing their vision. We get a great deal of satisfaction out of being able to help others.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I want to hear from both of you on this question as well. What have you learned about the experience of those with disabilities that are working in these professional fields? Do you do like job training at Bosma, or are you just like, how does that look for you?
So for me, I would say that it has taught me how to treat them as people who are blind or visually impaired, as a person who does not have a vision issue. And I say that because when it was my first day, everyone who has their first day of employment, you have to work alongside those who are on the glove line. That was, I love a challenge, so that was no problem for me. But also, they were packing these boxes faster than me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to pick up the pace." So that was really cool. The employees next to me, they were so nice. They were telling me about their story, getting to know each other. And then also at a rehab center, you get to see what they do at rehab. So if it's learning how to cook on the gas stove or electric stove, how to make your own bed, grocery shopping, anything like that that we typically do, anyone that's not visually blind or impaired, does on a regular, they learn how to do that. And it's not the end of your life, it's the start of a different chapter. It's obviously it's scary, but you can still do the same things, and that has been so amazing and inspiring to see. And I think that just working alongside everyone every day, it's just learning how to, everyone is treat everyone the same. Do not treat anyone any different just because they're visually impaired, or you can do this and they can't do that. Like, everyone needs to be treated equally. We're all humans. We all fall short somewhere, but if there needs to be a helping hand, go ahead and lend a helping hand.
Yeah.
And that's how we, thrive as a community.
Yeah, and it seems like you're really promoting accessibility, which is so important because we have come a really long way, but we still have a long way to go. Like, accessibility is still not where it could be, and the more that we talk about it and we push for it, the more resources people will have and feel like they can fit right back into the community.
That's absolutely right.
How about you, Lisa? What has your experience been like?
I think it's probably important to level set on the makeup of Bosma Enterprises. So we're about 170 employees. About half of us are blind or visually impaired, and about 20% of the people who are blind or visually impaired are in a management leadership or a leadership position. So we feel like we are a great example of demonstrating how people are blind or visually impaired can work just right alongside their sighted peers.
Yeah.
And here at Bosma Enterprises, we absolutely have the same expectations for somebody who's sighted that we do for somebody who's blind. We don't make any exceptions for the disability, but we do make accommodations for the disability. And that's probably the biggest difference between us and another employer who's not used to hiring somebody who's blind, but the expectations are exactly the same. And that's why Bosma Enterprises is a successful company.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important, is to maintain, like, the respect, the professionalism. It's still a job. There are still the same expectations set forth, but it's those accommodations and meeting people where they are and understanding what they need that makes it such a unique work environment.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So in terms of you talked about the rehab, and I think that's really amazing for just promoting, like, skills around the house or out in the community. But in terms of, like, employment, how do you feel like Bosma is helping people learn how to, access those skills or those resources to work in a place that may not be as accessible or as understanding as Bosma would be?
Bosma Enterprises does several things in that regard. We do have a division that's employment services that is strictly dedicated to helping people transition back to employment. We do that several ways. You have to educate employers. So a lot of our work is educating employers about how they can engage somebody who's blind.
Right.
People who are blind are not unique in their skills and abilities. We never want to put somebody in a role that they won't be successful. But we also know that people are people, and you're going to have employees who are blind or visually impaired who are good employees, and you'll have some that are bad employees. The disability doesn't define them. So
Right.
we work with employers to educate them about how they can engage people who have lost their vision in the workforce. We also help employees who have lost their vision transition back to work. So getting all of those skills aligned so that they can go back to work. Sometimes they don't want to go back to the career that they had before they lost their vision. Sometimes they do. And so we help ready them to, as Sherine said, access that next chapter of their life without vision.
Yeah. That sounds very empowering.
It's really amazing work. I think, some person much wiser than I said, if you love what you do, it doesn't much seem like work. And that's what I get to do every day. And I think Sherine would agree.
Absolutely, I would agree.
Well, I think that is a great note to end this episode of Let's Talk More on Monday. So where can people find you if they are interested in Bosma Enterprises?
I can be found, my email address is lisep@bosma.org. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Lisa. And my name is spelled LISEPACE.
And you can find me on LinkedIn at Sherine Monroe, SHERINE MUNROE, or at my email at Sherine, SHERINEM, @bosma.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for being on this episode of Let's Talk More on Monday, talking about Bosma and how we can be more accessible and inclusive to the people with disabilities in our community. Make sure to head over to our Patreon if you are listening to this. We're going to dig a little deeper with Sherine and Lisa and talk about some tools, some resources, how people can fight to be more accessible. So make sure to join us over there, and we will see you next time on Let's Talk More on Monday.